Hello, this is Rick Grantham, Business Intelligence Strategy and Project Manager at EPI-USE. Today we're going to discuss a strategic approach to SAP eRecruitment visualization. The first step is to identify the handful of KPIs or key performance indicators that relate eRecruitment to the strategic direction of the organization. For example, if your organization is opening a new manufacturing plant, you'll probably want to look at things like offer acceptance rate, new hire failure rate, or time to fill. In the private sector, these metrics are most commonly found in places like an annual report. In the public sector, it's most likely found in strategy documents where the breadth of services of the public sector organization are outlined. Another way to look at this is for your KPIs to be in the form of categories, which is another acceptable way of doing this, which we've done here, where KPI 1 is really an index or a summary of several recruitment metrics. KPI 2 is an index or a summary of several internal movement metrics, and then finally recruiting effectiveness. But once these have been identified for your organization, it's best to move to the next step, which is to identify a handful of supporting functional areas and to identify the KPIs that make a direct linkage in these three supporting functional areas to the overall KPIs or strategic direction of eRecruitment overall. Said differently, these KPIs should not be allowed to exist or be measured in your dashboards if there cannot be a direct linkage in between the overall KPIs and your supporting functional areas. Your supporting functional areas can be defined in a number of ways, either through geography or business units, product lines, or functional areas actually within the recruitment process. Once these KPIs are defined, it's best to look at diagnostic reports and to define those. Now you'll notice here I have the word operational for operational reporting with a 0 and an X through it. So we're not talking about operational reports. Operational reports could best be defined as the standard content that comes out of SAP BW. It is meant to cast a broad net to assist as many organizations as possible with standard content, but it's not necessarily meant to be strategic to the direction that your organization is taking. So what I'm talking about is not your standard content, but crystal reports or web intelligence reports, WebI reports, that are diagnostic in nature to the KPIs that you're tracking. And again, these reports should only be developed to the extent they help to answer a question, a diagnostic question about why a KPI might have been missed. But diagnostic reports, by their very nature, have a problem with navigation. A report developer or the person who wrote the requirements has defined for you the way that you're able to navigate this report. You're only able to drill down in a certain direction, or you're only able to toggle different radio buttons or very specific drop-down list and navigate in the way that the report developer has designed for you. To help your end user be intellectually curious on their own, it's usually best to look at an interactive area. Within SAP Business Objects, this is best done within tools like WebI or Web Intelligence or Business Objects Explorer. This allows your end user to be curious on their own without needing a power user or super analyst to be able to do all of the analytics for them. And if you're wondering what sort of information you should bring in to Web Intelligence, what sort of information you should model, you really don't need to think about that any further, because all of that information is the information that's in your diagnostic reports. It's the data elements that are in your KPIs. So once all of this has been structured, really there's no more question about what needs to be brought into Web Intelligence. It's really an output of those areas. Similarly, if you have hundreds and hundreds of diagnostic reports that need to be created and you don't know which ones you need to create, really you should only be looking at a handful of diagnostic reports. There's no longer a question of which diagnostic reports or which reports do I create. because those reports should only be created to the extent they support a KPI. So really this all starts with the KPIs. And you'll see over on the right hand side, the base or the power of SAP BW is what feeds the entire process once the KPIs have been defined. Let's take a look at how the eRecruitment metrics could look in a dashboard for Excelsius. This is an example of how an eRecruitment dashboard could look. Over on the left hand side, you'll see the major KPIs that we defined in the previous slide of recruitment, selecting internal movement. When I do this, you'll notice a trend graph over here on the right hand side changes, and effectiveness. You'll notice a few columns here, previous period, 2011 in this case, current period, or 2011, your trend, up or down or sideways, and yellow, green, or red stoplights based on your target. There could very well be additional columns you might want to put in here, like actually putting out exactly what the target is, showing the numbers for that, showing you're better or worse than target. Those are things that people are likely interested in as well. So you can interchange these and put in as many columns as you think are necessary for your end customer. But the point is, there are only a few data points here that you're actually able to look at. There's only a handful of columns that you usually would have in a scorecard, which is the reason there's a need for a trend graph over here so you can see how those metrics have changed over time. Now, we also discussed the supporting KPIs. So let's take a look at how that looks in an eRecruitment dashboard. Again, as we select on recruitment, you'll notice now we have, over on the right hand side, your supporting KPIs, such as external hire rate, net hire ratio, recruitment source breakdown, and recruitment source ratio, that support your major KPI category. So as this is turned yellow with a negative trend, your end user is able to quickly click on it and to see what area he needs to explore further. And in this case, external hire rate, recruitment source breakdown, and recruitment source ratio all have trends or stoplights that require our attention. You'll notice that these supporting KPIs now change as we move over to internal movement. Now we're looking at things like career path ratio and promotion rate. As we select on effectiveness, the same thing happens with applicant ratio, average time to fill, offer acceptance rate. You'll also notice further down trend graphs for each one of these supporting KPIs. Again, what we're looking at is additional detailed information as the person becomes curious at the major KPI level, the opportunity to look at supporting KPIs and to continue to get further information on those. So as we select on recruitment, you'll notice the trend graphs change to support external hire rate, which is your external hire rate supporting KPI. Recruitment source ratio to support recruitment source ratio. We also discussed the need for diagnostic reports. Those are shown over here on the left hand side, diagnostic reports. Now these reports, these are links to reports in Web Intelligence or Crystal Reports. We're not going to launch them for the purpose of this demonstration, but what I want to show you is that the titles of these are very diagnostic in nature, and the URLs would change to be change to be diagnostic in nature as well. So for recruitment, you'll see the titles here will change as we select internal movement. So the titles now are career path ratio versus last year, and this is to support the career path ratio sub KPI, which supports internal movement, career path ratio by recruiter, career path ratio versus last year, and moving a little further down, promotion rate by functional area to support promotion rate versus last year to support promotion rate. And again, looking at effectiveness, you'll notice that these diagnostic reports will change again. Applicant ratio versus last year to support applicant ratio. Offer acceptance rate versus last year. Offer acceptance rate by functional area to support offer acceptance rate. So this leaves one additional area for your end user, some sort of an interactive area. Now, this is typically done by creating a button that launches tools like Web Intelligence or Business Objects Explorer or some sort of ad hoc environment. But this could also be done within the Excelsius dashboard. So to give you an idea of what that can look like, just one click away for your end customer. Selecting on interactive visualization here, we can get more information about the KPIs. Now, in this case, we're showing a number of different dimensions. Up at the top we have the first dimension, which we've identified as functional area or interest group, work contract, or org unit. But this could very well be states, different locations that you have, or different ways that you might want to drill down on the information. So this is the first dimension. Second dimension you can give to your end user is on the x-axis. Now the x-axis and the y-axis, you'll typically include not only numerator and denominator information, but also the KPIs themselves. So in this case, let's select offer acceptance rate. You'll notice that offer acceptance rate changes on the x-axis. An additional dimension you give to your end user is the y-axis. So this would be your third dimension. In this case, let's look at internal placement rate. The fourth dimension to give to your customer is the z-axis. The z-axis is the size of the bubble. Now this is typically count type of data, not necessarily KPIs or ratios, because the size of the bubble, you're going to want to count things like the number of employees or applicants or new hires or offers accepted. This is typically count type data. In this case, let's look at applicants. Now, there's also a fifth dimension, which you'll see here, which is time. In this case, July 2010, which will change in the background as we select the play button. In this case, let's look at work contract, since there's only a few buttons here, or a few bubbles. Give you an idea of how this could look right off the bat. So selecting this, the play button, you'll notice this is July, August, September, where temporary is going down, number of employees that are temporary, then popping back up. Say we don't want to look at internship. We don't want to look at not assigned. We just want to compare temporary and exempt. And we can see how those change over time. As this plays through to July 2011, we could actually move over now if we wanted to functional area. Organization unit. Let's look at organization units. There's quite a few bubbles here. And we'll select those. And say that we're not interested in not assigned or sales, and remove those. What you're giving to your end user here is full interactive capability to be able to be intellectually curious on their own, to an extent that their question or their curiosity is not answered by the trend charts or is not answered by the diagnostic reports that were generated for them. So, to recap, all within one dashboard, all within one click away, without moving or changing from the screen, you have your KPI category indexes, or your major KPIs that relate you to the strategic direction of the organization. You have trend graphs to support those KPIs. You have supporting KPIs in a drill down fashion over on the right hand side. You have trend graphs to support those supporting KPIs. You have diagnostic reports that are diagnostic in nature, and that they're served up at runtime to support your supporting KPIs. And then finally, to the extent that those questions aren't answered, or the questions of the end user aren't answered by the diagnostic report, also an interactive visualization that your end user could use. This has been a strategic approach to SAP eRecruitment visualization. If you need further information or would like to contact us, feel free to contact Rowan Hinton at EPI-USE or me, Rick Grantham, at EPI-USE. Thank you for your time.